everyone, it's Arlene. On today's video, I'm going to share a tutorial on this altered matchbook box and mini album that I created using Graphic 45's French Country. Sit back and enjoy. To color the matchbook box, I decided to use Lindy Stamp Gang's color shot in Dark Chocolate Truffle, and I'm using a large paintbrush to apply that directly onto the raw box, and you'll see that here. I'm going to use my heat tool to set the stain in between coats, and I'm going to paint both the cover as well as the insert of the matchbook box. You'll see a really nice two-tone effect from the Lindy Stamp Gang color shots. It has some mica in it, so it has a little bit of shimmer, which is really nice. I'm taking some Ranger Distress Ink and Walnut Stain and my ink applicator and just edging around the box with the Distress Ink. Now it's time to choose the papers. I'm using French Country 8x8, and I'm also going to be using the 6x6 patterns and solids. And I'm taking out some of the coordinating embellishments for French Country so I can coordinate what I'll be using in the mini album. I'm using my Tim Holtz ruler to measure the box so I know how large to cut my chipboard pieces for the mini album pages. And I'm using heavyweight black chipboard. Here I'm taking the design paper and trimming down the design paper that I'll be layering on top of the chipboard, and I'm just cutting them 1/8 of an inch smaller than the actual chipboard pieces. I'm going to be using the 1/4 inch setting on my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper, and I'm rounding out the edges of the design paper as well as the chipboard album pages. I'm using a Tim Holtz sanding block to smooth out the edges of the pages here. I'm taking more of the Distress Ink and Walnut Stain and edging all of the design papers that I'll be laying down on the chipboard. And to apply the design paper onto the chipboard, I'm using a craft glue stick by Scotch, real simple. It holds really well, just get some good coverage of glue on there before you push it down on the chipboard. I cut a piece of design paper to layer to the bottom of the box. I'm edging it with Distress Ink first, and then I'm using my craft glue stick to adhere it down to the bottom of the box. I'm selecting some chipboard pieces from chipboards 1 and 2 of the French Country collection, and I'll be using these on the cover of the matchbook box as well as on the cover of the mini album. So I'm trying to figure out what pieces I'm going to be using. I'm sanding them down, and I'll be edging all of them with the Distress Ink and Walnut Stain as well. I don't typically start off with a sketch or a design, so I'm sort of playing around here to see where things are going to go. And they don't always end up where I plan, but I just try things out as I go. Here I'm taking some Recollections flowers and Prima flowers and kind of playing around with them to find out exactly where I want to place them. I'm using my Tim Holtz ruler to mark out where I want to punch holes for my mini album for the binding, and I'm using my Crop-A-Dile to punch those holes. From there, I'm using the first page I punched as a guide, and I'm marking the other pages with a pencil so I know exactly where to punch the holes. You can also use a 7 Gypsies bindery punch or your cinch or your bind it all to do this, but I decided to use my Crop-A-Dile. Here I'm just putting some rings on the binding just temporarily as I build the album. And I'm kind of playing around with different elements. Here I have some Graphic 45 Staples chipboard buttons, and to have them sort of peeking, I typically cut them in half and have them peek out in certain parts. It's just part of the layering process. I'm also going to edge everything here with walnut stain, as you saw. I'm taking a doily here that I cut out with an MFT die, and I cut it out onto some sanded terre paper, and I sanded it down. It's got some red peeking out, which is really nice. Here I'm just kind of building everything together, trying to figure out where things are going to go. I'm using score tape to put the elements down. This will hold it down really well. And some pop-up dots as well. And glossy accents. You'll see me use that quite a bit on this album. I forgot to mention that for the holes that I punched for the binding, I reinforced them with some We Are Memory Keepers eyelets, and I only did that to the front and back cover of the mini album pages. And the reason for that is so that the album doesn't get too bulky. I took a little key from the cardstock tag set, and I'm going to apply that here on the cover of the mini album with some glossy accents. I'm using my fine tip Surebonder hot glue gun to adhere down the flowers. Now for the cover of the matchbook box, I'm taking my ruler and measuring out pieces to adhere down to the front of the box. I'm going to edge those pieces with Ranger Distress ink, and I'm going to use some score tape to lay that down. You'll notice that I kind of jump around between working on the mini album and working on the cover, and it's really to keep going with what I'm most inspired to do at the moment, so I don't have to finish off one piece of the project before I start another. I cut out some additional panels with the design paper, and I'll be applying those to the sides of the box, and I'm using score tape again to adhere that down. Score tape holds really well over time, so I always grab the score tape or glossy accents or some heavy-duty adhesive when I'm working on altered projects. Here I'm grabbing a Graphic 45 Staples metal label holder, and I'm not sure where to put it. I'm trying out in different places, and it turns out I'll end up using it where the drawer pulls out. So you'll see me doing quite a bit of layering on here with some of the chipboard pieces, with some of the cardstock coordinating elements. I'm also using some of the metal staples, and I'll be using hot glue to adhere down all of the flowers, and mixing that up with some glossy accents to put down the chipboard pieces. Here I'm taking a Graphic 45 Staples metal tag and ornate metal keyhole and using some glossy accents to adhere those both together. And then I'm grabbing one of the Graphic 45 brads and connecting those together. I'm taking the stamped metal brad here, and I'll be breaking off the prongs and using some E6000 to adhere that brad down to the base of the ornate metal keyhole. Here I'm using a combination of embellishments. I'm using a bottle cap label from the banner set, as well as a chipboard piece from the French Country chipboard set. And then I add a flower on that later to accent the side of the box. Now I'm taking a sticker from the 12 by 12 French Country sheet, and I'll be using one of the sentiments to frame in the ornate label holder. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Here are some pictures of my completed project. I'm really happy the way that this came out. I didn't share the creation of the actual mini album pages on this video, but I do share some pictures here at the end. decided to use this little mini album as a keepsake of Winter CHA 2012 when I had the opportunity to meet a number of the design team members from Lindy Stamp Gang as well as some other crafters. So you'll see that I have some sentiments. It says joy, friend, and other sentiments that I collected from the French Country collection. Thanks for joining me for today's video tutorial. For more pictures and information, visit the Graphic 45 blog at g45papers.typepad.com.